10 ways my life changed after discovering my psychic abilities. So my story started in the fall of 2018 when I took a half-day course on mediumship. And we were led through meditations, educated on terminology, and even got to do readings on other students in the class. And so this day changed my whole life. And now, 4 years later, I work as a psychic medium. I create online courses and personally coach and guide others who wish to take on this amazing journey for themselves. Many aspects of my perspective and reality have changed since that one day 4 years ago when I was completely unaware that I had access to these abilities the whole time. So I wanted to share 10 ways my life changed after discovering my psychic abilities, so you can get a real sense of what life is like discovering psychic, medium, intuitive, or healing abilities. I call them soul abilities. What it's like having discovered it. And this will come up in my list that I think you can do it too. That's going to be on the list. So one is that I had a spiritual awakening. So the process of fully accepting that I had psychic abilities and was able to tap into it whenever I wanted was a 6-month process. But the onset of realizing that my imagination is a place of information retrieval and experiencing this realization triggered a spiritual awakening. I believe that my spiritual awakening began at that 2018 class. I remember doing meditations during the class and exercises that were intended to direct attention to intentionally gain information psychically and with mediumship. And I remember there was an intense energy that was coursing through me that was really exciting. And halfway through the class, I felt like I just wanted to go outside and run around the block because the energy was just so intense inside of me. And that night I experienced what I would describe as an out-of-body experience as I slept. And a day or so later, I started having really high anxiety. While high anxiety may not seem like part of a spiritual awakening that some people talk about, I consider that week-long intense energy that was really uncomfortable to actually be sort of a leveling up, where my body was just not used to that kind of energy flowing through it. At least that's how I rationalize it. And then after that week of intense anxiety faded away, I started to experience how people typically describe a spiritual awakening, which felt great. And everything felt brand new and beautiful. And of course, feeling connected with everything. 2, how I understood psychic was wrong. So after discovering my psychic abilities, I realized that having psychic abilities wasn't something special. Previously, I had always seen it as something that wasn't mine or that I was incapable of doing, and that those people that could do it were special, and that I wasn't born to be special like that. But discovering and practicing my abilities, eventually I realized with enough time and evidence that I gained for myself, admitting that I have psychic abilities, I realized that that having psychic abilities was something that anybody is capable of doing. I didn't know that I could do it. And then all of a sudden I was directed to where I was supposed to be in my mind. And I just became aware of what to do. It really felt like a flip of a switch once I knew that my imagination was where I needed to go. And that time and practice would help refine the detail and accuracy. So how I understood psychic ability as something not normal became something completely normal. And I view psychic ability amongst all the other soul abilities as innate human abilities. Number 3, psychic is not all the things. So when I started the process, I didn't understand that psychic was a very specific definition. than what I thought. Initially, I thought psychic stuff encompassed everything weird, like mediumship and intuition. In fact, my experience through the first year of my development was trying to discern between my psychic, medium, and intuition skills, like how I was getting the information, and trying to separate these out as to what it was. Eventually, I recognized that mediumship included another individual in your mind's eye, so that was easy to discern, like you're having a conversation with somebody. Psychic ability was knowing information while not physically being in a place to witness information, such as seeing things from the past or seeing things in the future, very timeline centered, or being able to see something that's happening right now but far away, like in another part of the world. My psychic also mixed into my mediumship ability, where I would know things that the person in spirit who I was talking to, I would know things that they wouldn't tell me. So that mixed me up for a little bit. And then intuition was the last soul ability that took me the longest to define and discern. It was the most rewarding, I feel, which is information that I feel through sensations and emotion, which is a different experience for me than psychic or mediumship. Number 4, I started to figure out who I really was through refining of my psychic and other soul abilities with the intention to get clearer messaging and to feel more solid in my ability. I found that I started to see that pieces of me were getting in the way. The way I would do things was getting in the way. I came to recognize what's called my ego, myself that is conditioned to living in a social environment. Recognizing my ego led me to understand how much of me was shaped by what other people thought, or who other people thought I was, or who I thought I should be, or how I should act. And as I started recognizing the ways that I coped to survive the social world, I started to recognize that these things were disrupting my ability to receive and accurately discern information using my psychic and mediumship abilities. And as I worked to be better at my craft, I started to recognize more and more who I was and what was important to me. It really was a deep dive into understanding how I've been conditioned to survive the social world, the cultural beliefs, and my own mindset and beliefs, as well as understanding that this stuff really is a choice to accept or not accept. In accepting it, you take on a great burden that is unnatural to you, and that ultimately doesn't serve you in your best interest. Not accepting it allows room for you to focus on things that make you feel good and allow for you to work more in line with universal law and who you really are. Number 5, I found my purpose. So discovering my psychic abilities when I was 33 gave me a perspective that you can walk around not knowing you are perfectly capable of using soul abilities, your psychic, medium, intuition, or healing abilities. Having experienced life before and after gave me a purpose. And that purpose was to give people the possibility of experiencing the impossible. And not only to experience it via me as the medium, psychic medium, the messenger, but more importantly, to teach you to do it for yourself. So my purpose became that I wanted other people to experience this shift too. And as you've heard so far in this list, there are some amazing benefits that I don't think I could have been exposed to through any other means than experiencing and gaining trust through my soul abilities. 6, I became socially fearless. In the year that followed my spiritual awakening with my discovering journey, I felt empowered. I learned I can do something that a lot of people thought is impossible. I gained a purpose, which I have never, ever felt so solid with in my lifetime. I felt like I knew a secret. And the culmination of all this discovery and the conviction and the astonishment, it all created a fearless version of me where I would do things that I wouldn't normally have done. And one of these things was becoming much more social, much more extroverted, and even feeling a need to connect with people. All of these things really did not exist before discovering my abilities. But once I discovered these abilities, I wanted to share. I wanted to be a part of. I wanted to connect. I wanted to find people that knew what I knew. A piece of me surrendered, which in the past would have been the most prominent force to direct me away from compromising my egoic self, to compromising my reputation of other people's judgments, their opinions, or their impressions. But after discovering my soul abilities, what other people's opinions about me were just didn't matter. They just didn't matter anymore. Number 7, I became more emotionally stable. While I wouldn't consider myself an absolute wreck of a human being before discovering my psychic abilities, I would say that I certainly had my ups and downs. And discovering my psychic abilities and my other soul abilities really made me feel more in control, because I felt like I had an insider to give me a heads up and to gain perspective of how things actually work and how I can invest in that knowledge and focus in certain directions to ensure a more steady, easier path. I also found that my point of focus really became one of less external noise, such as attention to social media or the news, office politics, and my attention became more focused on me and my energy and others and their energy. And with that, I think it helped create less stress to have to deal with anyway. So I was sort of focusing only on the bubble I was in and not the bubble that I'm told is around me, which is basically prioritizing my experience as my truth and lessening other people's reporting of reality and taking that information with a grain of salt instead of investing in that as my own truth. Number 8, I gained stronger connections with the people I am closest to. So another way that I could describe that is that I was able to disconnect or reprioritize relationships that I did not feel like worked for me. And the relationships that did work for me, I felt like I invested more into in a way that was bringing an authentic love and appreciation that used to be hard for me to share. I found my relationship with my kids became more positive. I was more attentive. I was more patient. I found my relationship with my husband was one where I would consciously decide to engage or to share, when in the past, maybe I wouldn't even think to do those things. So I also found myself connecting with people that I normally wouldn't have, simply because I was afraid to connect. But I grew a different outlook on the kind of casual one-on-one opportunities that I was okay with. Number 9, everything becomes gray instead of black and white. Now, I'm not talking about visual colors in this instance. I'm talking about the fact that anything is possible now. And with this, I've gotten the perspective that there are 0 black and white conclusions. So in this time of highly polarized opinions and issues and problems, I've come to realize that every opinion and solution is both right and wrong, and that every solution, there's a spectrum, and it's not one or the other. And at one time, I would have bashed Donald Trump followers because Donald Trump's an idiot. But now I can understand why people liked him. I can even agree that having Donald Trump in the position that he was in was needed because somebody did need to shake things up in politics. I can still find a positive in that not everything is black or white, and there's just a lot of gray area. Just like there's positive in everything, there's also negative. It's not one or the other, as our physical world wants us to accept. I've come to understand that I am my biggest and only obstacle. This may seem negative, but my perspective changed in that the problems that I once thought were out of my control, I now see as completely in my control. And that I have the power to take problems and turn them into solutions. I have the perspective that there is no such thing as failure, because with failure comes the opportunity, and with opportunity becomes a path to finding further abundance and further contentment. And the best part of my life nowadays is realizing what my problem is, because I realize that awareness is the hardest part, and that's what brings you to the front door of the solution. Is once you become aware, then it's right there. And even if your ego is blocking the door, you know what you have to do to resolve, and it's completely in your hands to have that choice, and it's nice to have that choice. Bonus, I figured out the meaning of life. I wish this could be something that would blow your mind, but from what I've been through, it blows my mind. But the meaning of life is just to feel good. You could even think of it as a game. What can I do to feel good and keep this feeling going? That's the game. It seems really simple and kind of obvious, but honestly, simple and kind of obvious has been my journey the past 4 years since discovering my psychic, medium, and other soul abilities. So why should that be complicated too? It's not. Thanks for watching 10 Ways My Life Changed After Discovering My Psychic Abilities. Please like this video. Subscribe and comment below if you have a question that I can answer about living a life using psychic or other soul abilities. If you are interested in starting the journey, check out my link below to take my online course designed to see evidence of your abilities and the soul world. It opens you up and gets you started. So follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, and visit my blog at my Soul Abilities Development Center at nextgenmedium.com. Bye.